What's up, guys? In this video we're going to be taking a look at a new deck from the Pokemon XY Furious Fist expansion. These cards are mainly revolving around Seismitoad Ex, Victreebel of all cards, and Jellicent or Jellicent from Boundaries Cross. Now, this deck is pretty interesting. It's not the most competitive deck in the world because there are a lot of popular cards that counter this, but in the right situations, this can actually be really frustrating for your opponent to play against. I'll just go through the main strategy of this deck and how it works, and afterwards I will bring you guys a match I played on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. Now, first of all, we're using Seismitoad Ex. Actually, we'll show you the full art one because that one's cooler. Seismitoad Ex has Quaking Punch for DCE. It does 30 damage, and your opponent can't play item cards. Now, most people would naturally pair this with something like Garbodor, just because then your opponent can't remove the tool on your Garbodor, and you can continuously shut off their abilities while doing damage. So it's pretty good in that deck, but I figured everyone would be playing something like that, so I decided to play something a little different. So in addition to Seismitoad Ex, we have a 3-1-3 line of Victreebel. Now, Victreebel has the ability Wafting Scent, and once during your turn, you can discard a grass energy attached to this Pokemon, and your opponent's Pokemon is now confused and poisoned. Now, the whole strategy of this deck is you lock them in place with Seismitoad by getting them in the active spot, using Quaking Punch so they can't play item cards, and then you use Wafting Scent to make sure they are poisoned to do additional damage, and they're confused, so they have to flip a coin. If you guys don't know how confusion works, you have to flip a coin, and if it's heads, you get to attack like normal, but if it's tails, you get 30 or 3 damage counters on you, and you do not get to attack that turn. So most decks would try and retreat or switch out of being confused just because it's really annoying, but this deck kind of forces you to just to attack or manually retreat, because with Seismitoad, you can't use a Float Stone or a Switch or an Escape Rope or anything like that to retreat your Pokemon. You either have to manually retreat or attack, and most decks would not like to attack because it leaves their Pokemon active. They're going to take more damage from poison and from the confusion damage. So we also run a 2-2 line of Jellicent. This is from Boundaries Cross. It has the ability Stickiness, which is kind of nasty, but the retreat cost of each of your opponent's Pokemon is 1 colorless more. So if I have 2 of these in play, they do stack, and I'm up against a Landorus EX, that Landorus EX will have a 5 retreat cost. So it basically makes them attack into your Seismitoad and risk taking those damage counters. Now, it's kind of an interesting concept, and it has worked in the past, but there are a lot of cards that counter this, such as Virizion EX's Verdant Wind, Darkrai EX, Fairy Garden, anything that gives you free retreat. Basically just ruins this whole concept, but it's really cool when it works. It's very frustrating for your opponent to play, and like I said, they can get out of it by if they flip heads anyway, then it really doesn't matter, but a lot of the times 50% they will flip the tails, and they'll get an additional 6 damage counters going back into their turn from the poison and Verbank and the confusion damage. So it's pretty cool to play against, to play with, actually, not to play against. It'd be really annoying to play against. So those are the Pokemon in this deck. I'm running a 3-1-3 line of Victreebel. I run one Weeping Bell just in case I'm playing another Seismitoad deck and I can't use my item cards. 2-2 line of Jellicent, and I'm using 3 Seismitoad. And like I said, there are a lot of decks that this deck's not very good against. We could try and tech for those, but we're just going to keep it the way it is. As far as our trainers go, we have 2 Crushing Hammer just to try and we have the 2 Crushing Hammer and 1 Enhanced Hammer. Like I said, just to try and keep their opponent's Pokemon in the active and make it so it can't retreat or it can't attack, so it just has to sit there and stay active and be poisoned. So those are the reason for those. I run 1 Dowsing Machine just because it's a good A-spec to get back a supporter or something. 1 Level Ball just to search out a Weeping Bell, or Bellsprout, or Frillish if I need it. 1 Pokemon Catcher to try and give us an additional chance to get a Pokemon off the bench active. Pretty nice. 1 Professor's Letter to get those grass energies. 2 Rare Candies just to evolve our Victreebel line. I run 2 Super Rods just to get back our grass energy because we do have to discard them with Victreebel. 2 Switch just in case we get stuck active with something we don't want. Our opponent can try and stall us out by using a Lysander on our Weeping Bell or our Jellicent, and then you can't attack with Seismitoad, and it kind of breaks the lock. So we have 2 Switch. I'm running 3 Ultra Ball just to get out our attackers. 2 Colress, 1 Lysander just to give us that catcher effect. 4 4 Juniper, and 3 Skyla. Skyla's pretty good in this deck just to get, you know, whatever you really need to make the combo work. We're running 2 Verbank City Gems just to add up that poison damage. Pretty nice. I'm running, I believe, 3 Muscle Bands just to help us get additional damage into play. 4 DCEs for our Seismitoad, and we're running 7, 2 of these nice Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Sparkly Energies, and 5 regular Grass Energies. Obviously, you can use whatever Grass Energies you want, that doesn't matter. So yeah, that's the deck for you guys, and after this video I'll be showing you a match, so we'll go to that. What's up guys, now we're going to be taking a look at a match I played on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. Looks like I will be going first, and my opponent appears to be playing a Garbodor deck. We'll probably see some of the newer attackers like the fighting attackers, or maybe Seismitoad or something like that. And we see my opponent open up with that Seismitoad, so I'm going to try and play out as many items as I can this turn, because the next turn they probably will be useless. So I'm going to play that Ultra Ball, getting rid of probably a Victreebel and Grass Energy. I suppose it doesn't really matter. I'm going to Juniper anyway this turn. Get that Bellsprout into play and play down that Juniper. And I have a pretty decent hand actually off of that Juniper to work with. If I don't get hit by Quaking Punch, I'll be able to get my Victreebel using Wafting Scent this next turn here, so that'll be pretty nice if I don't get hit by that Quaking Punch. If I do, it'll be a little bit annoying, but definitely not the end of the world. I'm glad I started with the Seismitoad because, as we saw, my opponent is playing Garbodor, and Garbodor would shut off my ability, and I don't play anything to get rid of the tools. I'm just kind of hoping that I can get Seismitoad out active, you know, early on, and just make sure they can't attach tools to their Garbodor. But we see my opponent bench a Landorus, and we see a Super Scoop Up, so it looks like my opponent is opting to attack with Landorus instead of Seismitoad, which is perfectly fine with me. Landorus is actually weak to water, so my Seismitoad will do more damage, and I'll be able to, you know, set up that that Victreebel. So a pretty nice turn of events for me. That Quaking Punch there would have been kind of annoying. Would have just had to settle for just a normal Quaking Punch with the Muscle Band, so pretty glad about that. And here I'll probably attach that Grass to the Bellsprout just to get it powered up for Wafting Scent, and then Skyla for the Rare Candy, and get Victreebel into play, and then use Wafting Scent on Landorus EX, as well as doing 100 damage to it, and hopefully we can keep it locked into the active spot and not take any damage from, you know, a Hammerhead or a Land's Judgment or something like that. Would be pretty annoying. So we see my Wafting Scent go, and my opponent is now poisoned and confused, so that's pretty nice. We see a Colress for 4, so definitely not a good hand for my opponent. We see a Fighting Stadium, which is kind of annoying, and we see my opponent try to attack, and no, we see the Tails, so they're going to take 3 damage counters from that, which is pretty nice. And here I have some supporters. I think I'm just going to probably play down that Super Rod. Maybe I should have used Wafting Scent and then played it, but it probably doesn't matter because my opponent is still, you know, affected from the previous, so I suppose that doesn't really matter. And I could use the Juniper, but I decided to keep that Grass Energy because Grass Energy is very important. I wouldn't want to somehow whiff on getting a Grass Energy, although it's not likely it could happen, and that would be very annoying. So just leave my hand like that. And we see a Fossil Researcher getting 2 Tyrants on the bench, so definitely a very interesting deck by my opponent. But nevertheless, we get a Jellicent into play, or Jellicent, however you want to pronounce that. So that Seismitoad's not going anywhere anytime soon. Play that, use that ability Wafting Scent, and then I could play the Juniper again, but I want to keep that Grass Energy like I said. And then we just settle with a Quaking Punch. So this is basically the main strategy of the deck. Try and keep your opponent on their back heels and, you know, just completely locked in place without doing anything. And here we see yet another Tail, so that is very good for me. This deck does rely on flips a lot, which is really annoying, but you know, when it works, it definitely works. So here I'll just level ball for another Bellsprout, attach that Grass Energy, and here I'll decide to Juniper. I have that Crushing Hammer. I could use it. I think I'll probably just use it just because my opponent could get an attack off next turn, and although a a Quaking Punch by my opponent wouldn't be the biggest deal in the world, it would still just be annoying in case, I don't know, they play an N and I can't get, you know, the right cards into play somehow. I don't really know. I don't think it'd be that big a deal, but just getting that DC out of the way is good because my opponent actually decides to attach another here, so I'll be able to get rid of two DCEs. We see them grab a Super Scoop Up with the Karina, but that's not going to work because we just use Quaking Punch, which is nice. And we see another Tail, so my opponent is going to knock themselves out here, which is pretty nice in my opinion. We basically just take them out, and we see a Tyrant. come active, which is kind of annoying. It's a 90 HP basic from a fossil, so I won't be able to knock it out this turn. I could use a Wafting Scent on it. I'm not really sure if I want to. I think using it would probably be a better idea, because if they don't get it out of the active, then it will then it'll get knocked out coming back in my turn. But here I think I was worried about, you know, some bigger attackers like Landorus and you know, Seismitoad and stuff, and I didn't want to, you know, run out of grass energy, because I don't play that many. You know, I play enough, but so here I probably should have used Wafting Scent, but I decided not to. I'm not really sure why I did that, but you know, regardless, it's probably not the worst play in the world. They won't be able to use any items here, and that Tyrant will get knocked out next turn regardless, so I suppose it's not the worst, you know, misplay in the world. We see a Tyrantrum on the bench. We see a Training Center go down, so that Tyrantrum will have more HP, which is kind of annoying. And here, I don't really know. I don't want to end, obviously. I only have 2 prize cards left. I decide to play that Colress, and I can get rid of that Training Stadium for the Verbank. Play a Crushing Hammer. Don't get it, though. That would have been kind of nice. Evolve to Weeping Bell. And here I have a Pokemon Catcher. I decide to go after that Tyrantrum. I'm not really sure why. I probably could have just knocked out the Tyrant here, but regardless, I go for Tyrantrum because that's the main threat, and if I can make him flip tails here, that'd be really nice. So we decide to go for that Wafting Scent and Quaking Punch combination again. And here, if they flip tails, they'll basically get knocked out next turn, and after that, my opponent won't have anything else really to deal with any of my attackers, which is pretty nice. So even if my opponent can knock me out here with a Chew Up, I believe the attack's called, they'll definitely not be in a very good situation. They'll get knocked out next turn regardless, so we'll have to see what my opponent exactly does here. Probably not the worst play, capturing it out. That just, you know, kind of sets a timer on Tyrantrum, making it so, you know, it only has a little bit left. And even if they wanted to retreat here, they would have to attach another energy to do it, because a 2 energy, actually, a DCE to get it out because of the 2 Jellicent. But we do see a Heads, unfortunately. Probably about time for my opponent, though. And I promote this Seismitoad, and at this point, I believe my opponent just decides to concede the game, because there's really not much left they can do. Yeah, there we see the concede, just because you know, this Tyrantrum's going to get knocked out. They won't have any energy in play, and the next Landorus will be hit by Wafting Scent and Quaking Punch again. So that's basically the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy some of these rogue decks and rogue variants, let me know. I can do a lot more like this. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.